Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. And on the line with me, Professor Harvey J. Kaye, Professor of Democracy and Justice Studies at the University of Wisconsin, Green Bay, and author of a couple of books, the most recent, The Fight for the Four Freedoms, What Made FDR and the Greatest Generation Truly Great, and Thomas Paine and the Promise of America. Am I remembering that right, Harvey?
You got it exactly right. Good to hear your voice on a day that's otherwise not very uplifting.
Well, I find a lot of uplifting stuff about today. Virtually every ballot measure in virtually every state, regardless of how, quote, red it was, that expressed progressive values won. And the ballot measures that expressed conservative values, like this fetal personhood thing, lost. So, what this says to me is that what we're seeing is the ascendance of faction, of what Madison was warning against in Federalist Number 10, self-interested, wealthy parties who are putting their own interest above the interest of the country and the average person, and empowered by the Supreme Court. What do you think the founders would have said about this?
What I think the founders would have said, I think they would have been horrified. I think they would say to us that even if we didn't use the word democracy very often, the republic itself is in jeopardy. The degree of inequality, the corporate power, the concentration of power and wealth. And by the way, I want to stand corrected when I said on an otherwise not uplifting day. I actually expected the outcome yesterday, and as I've been telling my colleagues and my students, the real contradiction. That is that Americans want progressive action. I mean, I think that's pretty clear, as you were saying. It's also the case that they were prepared to vote for folks who offer nothing of a hopeful, sort. And I think Thomas Paine would know what was going on. What he would probably say is that, nobody's really articulating. By the way, I shouldn't say nobody. I think Bernie's coming on a bit later. Is that it?
Yeah, he's going to be with us all next hour.
I mean, Bernie's my hero, without doubt. There's a man who's speaking of the imperative of political revolution, the imperative of addressing inequality, the imperative of raising working people's wages. And Thomas Paine would recognize a system in which the politicians, the Republicans, are way out to the right, okay, as FDR would have called them. They are the economic royalists' representatives. And the Democrats are doing a damn good job of ignoring and literally doing nothing, as in contrast to Bernie, about the question of inequality and the question of working people's powers and rights. And if I sounded a bit down, which I'm angry more than down, it's because, of course, Scott Walker was reelected here in the state of Wisconsin. Right. Not surprising, given that the Democrats once again put up a centrist candidate at best. Yeah. So the founders tell us, basically, in the face of these kinds of contradictions, it's imperative to mobilize Americans. Absolutely imperative. And Thomas Paine in particular would say that it's imperative that we get leaders and we get intellectuals who are able to turn these kinds of contradictions into progressive action. I mean, seriously speaking, when 5 states have on their agenda, including Arkansas, the idea of raising the minimum wage, and then they turn around in those same states and vote for people who are otherwise disposed, there's clearly something wrong. And the power of money is significant, but we also need, obviously, voices like yours to articulate what Americans are truly feeling and wanting.
Yeah. Where, FDR was, and you point this out in your book, The Four Freedoms, FDR was one of the real transformational, the fight for the four freedoms was, a transformational president who recalibrated the direction of America following the crash of 1929. The House of Representatives is now in Republican hands at a threshold that we haven't seen literally since the election of 1928. And when Herbert Hoover came into office, the third or fourth serial Republican, Harding, Coolidge, Hoover, the third.
Yeah.
And do you think that we're at 1928 again? And do you think that the next president, or even this president, will have the ability to start channeling FDR?
Well, let's put it this way. I think class inequality of the Gilded Age were clearly there. You would have to agree with that, correct?
Yes.
And the presence of Republicans across the country in high office, that reproduces 1928. Of course, the question would be, if there had been no Depression, would Hoover have been reelected? Right. And in this instance, one does not want to see the return of the Great Recession with the force of 2007 and 2008. But one wonders, what will it take to shake up the Democratic Party so that voices like, say, Elizabeth Warren start to emerge as not simply the voice over on the progressive left, but the voice at the heart of the party, or that Bernie Sanders might ever feel comfortable enough to actually enter into the Democratic Party and be embraced as some kind of leader. Now, that's the real question. How will the Democratic Party shake up? I mean, frankly, one could only hope as a progressive that Hillary Clinton decides not to run. I believe that. Okay, and that seems unlikely right now because I fear that Democrats are going to rally around Hillary as somehow the savior of the party.
They already have, Harvey. Every woman in the Senate, every Democratic woman in the Senate has already signed a petition asking Hillary to run. My hope is that Hillary can be pushed to become a progressive. FDR, you wrote the book about FDR. When he was the governor of the state of New York, he basically twiddled his thumb while Wall Street brought down the economy.
He definitely was already experimenting as governor of New York. He had a pretty good record as governor of New York. That's not the case.
All right.
But the thing is, you are right. Can voices such as Warren and Bernie mobilize the rest of us? Can we get the labor movement active enough to start not just to ask for something in the platform, but truly to compel Clinton to not just get elected, but to pursue policies that her husband would never have pursued?
Right, and I got this aha last night. There was a couple of talking heads on TV going on and on about how the election of 80 or 90, whatever it was, 94, 96, one of those elections where Clinton lost a lot of Congress. And
the Gingrich Revolution of 94.
Yeah, 94. And all of a sudden, Bill Clinton became all friendly and, buddy-buddy with the Republicans. And, okay, we'll end welfare as we know it, and it'll be the end of big government as we know it, and, blah-de-blah-de-blah.
Oh, yeah,
and
right.
it suddenly hit me, FDR wouldn't have done that, didn't do that. I wonder if Clinton was doing that because he was setting it up for his wife.
That's a damn good question. And I know we got to go, but I'll tell you this. What I'd love to see is if Obama gets too buddy-buddy with the Republicans and puts everything back on the table, I want to see Trump gun everybody, call us all out. I want to see 2 million people on the National Mall in Washington, D.C.
I'm with you. I'll show up. Professor Harvey Kaye. Thanks, Harvey.
Thank you, Tom.
Hang on just a second, Harvey.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 866-987-THOM.
Harvey's newest book, The Fight for the Four Freedoms, What Made FDR and the Greatest Generation Truly Great. You can find it at whatever your favorite local or online bookstore is.